Sportsline Podcast. We always appreciate you joining us on CHCH.com or Parrot TV. I'm Bubba O'Neil. As you know, this podcast is all about the outstanding athletes, coaches, executives, and teams that hail from this region. Today, it's a show of analysis and opinion regarding the recently started NHL playoffs, where Sabres fans in the Niagara region and Western New York are enjoying postseason hockey for the first time since 2011. Well, even Bills quarterback Josh Allen has caught the playoff fever in the Below, and to give us his perspective on the series between the Sabres and Bruins and a whole lot more from the NHL, from the Hockey News, happy to chat with David Alter. Glad to have you back here, partner. Great stuff.
Yeah, great to be here, Bubs. This is fantastic. So it's a beautiful day outside, and it's great to be on here with you.
You know, let me throw this to you. This is a fun time as we talk about, you use the word fun here, media, fans. Can you explain to me, we sit through basically 7 months of NHL hockey, 82 games, but why is it that the playoffs seem to be such a different beast?
It's just the intensity. It's the stakes. It's the beauty of all of that. And it's the hostilities that have been carried over from the regular season. Like, you've got these divisional matchups now, and you've got players who know one another. But the antics that you see on the ice, it's a different game. It really is. Like, of all the major sports, I think it's the only one where the playoffs and the style of play and what it takes to win is vastly different in the playoffs in the regular season. You just don't see it. Like, I'm watching these games, I'm seeing fights after every stoppage, I'm seeing very little space out there, carnage. It's amazing, and the crowd just gets super into it too. Like, that's what really makes the first round of the playoffs so exciting and so different than those 82 games that you mentioned.
When you are actually talking to the players, do you get that feeling that they are treating it as such?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, they know, like, in an 82 game season, like, you're fighting for points. There's no doubt about that. You need that. But what happens here, unlike the regular season, like, you're only going to see a team in your division a maximum 3 to 4 times. Everyone else, maybe in the other division, the conference, 3 times, and then the Western Conference twice. But here, it's 4 to 7 games, and there's adjustments that have to be made within each game. So what I love about it, like, I'm watching game 2 there. The Sabres are down 4-0, but you know, they know it's just going to be 1-1, and that there's the game within the game. So they are just starting fights and getting right into their grill, knowing, you know what? They got to see each other again in less than 2 days. Like, they've got to send the messages here, where a lot of times, you know, there's home and home series, but there's just not as much at stake. And then in most situations in the regular season, you play an opponent and then you're not going to see them for months. And then you might have even forgotten, unless something crazy happened, you probably forgot most of what happened that game, and you have to watch film and tape to remember, oh yeah, there's that. And like, that's the team staff will do all that. And the team staff will prepare some of that, but it's so fresh in the minds because they're just playing in another day, that if they get stomped in one of these games or whatever it is, they're not just going to roll over and go on to the next one. They're going to send some messages there to make sure that they know for the game within the game in a couple days from now, they're going to be right there to get that next one.
You know, you're right about the angst on the ice between the players and the argy-bargy that seems to be going on between the players. And even sometimes you see the coaches kind of chatting each other. And you're right. You don't see that in the regular season as much. But there was a time where I felt like you just didn't see the fights in the playoffs. Well, don't say that to the Sabres and Bruins and, of course, the Lightning and the Canadiens. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. But I guess where I'm going with this is the angst seems to translate to the crowd. What's going on with Sabres fans? I mean, I used to think the Bills fans were the craziest. Of course, you know, no table is safe. But the Sabres fans, they've lost it in these games.
I think there's a few factors. I think Sabres and Bills fans are kind of synonymous, just being Buffalo. They're the same breed in that regard. But I think it's like you're watching it here. This is just a fan base that's just been starved for playoff hockey. Like, it's great. Like, I remember watching all the old footage when they're in there and how alive that city was, and the Rick Jeanneret calls behind all these plays that you would see in Buffalo. And a lot of that's been missing. And so now, they're pumped. They've been waiting for this. It's a generation of fans. and I think you take that, you take what the city's all about, great sports city, and all those things that take into account that all this pent up emotion that everyone's been waiting for has culminated to these first couple of games here. And I think you're seeing it translate into play. Like, the players feel it. Like, yeah, they went down 4-0 in that game last night, but then they get 2, and the crowd has not left. They're right back into it, and it's loud. It's loud. There's fights at 4-0, and the crowd got loud. Like, they're down 4-0, and the crowd was super into it at that point. It's not a happy to be there thing. It's really just, this fan base is just ready to let it all out, and you're seeing it in the cast of characters and some of the things you just don't see in other places, that's for sure.
Series at this point, as our conversation goes on, is tied 1-1. Sabres winning the first game with a wild comeback. The Bruins pretty much a very dominant performance. I thought kind of just had the Sabres on the back foot all game until really the final 5 minutes of the game, when the game was probably pretty much in order. Your thoughts on what you're seeing in this series right now? And I'll start it off with this quick question. We talk about this crowd, but is there a chance that the crowd sometimes, the Sabres can kind of get too hyped and kind of lose focus a little bit?
Maybe. I didn't sense that from them. The issue I found with the Sabres is, while they're able to generate a lot of shots, they weren't penetrating the interior as much. And so, like, even though the shots could look lopsided, especially in that first game, they just weren't really challenging the goalie in Swayman. So I think that's probably where things kind of were bad for them. I haven't seen a situation where the intensity cost them like an egregious chance the other way. Like, I haven't seen that yet. And just talking to the players, they just seem to be carried by it. Like, there's a certain responsibility and passion that comes with their game that they feel, a certain responsibility to kind of uphold what the long wait's been for. So I haven't seen that. In game 2, the Bruins did play a lot better. And the other thing too was there was just that unfortunate goal from Morgan Geekie at center ice that just kind of beat Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Is one of those weird ones that I was actually commenting to colleagues. I'm actually surprised I don't see it more frequently, because even though you lose possession, you can really handcuff a goalie there, like whether it's a rebound or whatever. If they misplay it, you see what happened there. So, just a real situation now where that crowd's not there, and I'm actually curious to see how the Sabres respond on the road when they don't have that fervorish fan base behind them, if they can play to that same standard. They definitely generate a lot of shots, and they're very talented, but they got to get into the interior. And what Boston's done really well is just defend and not allow a lot of ice in the middle. And you saw that even with the power play, where Buffalo has just not been successful there, and they've had a lot of opportunities, and the Bruins have been perfect in that regard.
You're right. I mean, there was 22 penalties, minor penalties, 2 majors, 4 misconducts. Like I said, lots of stuff going on, especially in the second and third periods. But I think there is some concern about the Sabres' power play. With all that amazing offensive talent, I mean, I think going into the regular season, I think they're almost close to 0 for 30 at this point. It seems shocking.
Yeah, and there isn't an appetite to change it. Well, there wasn't after game 1. There might be now after game 2. We'll see. But generally speaking, I think Lindy Ruff doesn't want to kind of show a sense of panic in the series early on. So, and the fact that they were able to respond and get goals late and not give up and not roll over probably suggests that everything will kind of stay the same. And, once the dam breaks on the power play, they'll feel even better about the situation that they're in right now. But there's a lot of inexperience in the lineup. There's a lot of talented players, but inexperience. Boston's got some inexperienced players too, but they've just developed a culture of winning over the last 10 years or so that everyone seems to kind of be acclimated to it, and there's good leadership there. So I'm curious to see what sort of adjustments they make on the power play. But yeah, they're just not getting pucks to the net, and Boston's just doing a really good job of jamming up the interior of the ice, and it's no more evident than on the power play because they just kind of have to keep things boxed out, and it's the same kind of chances where it's point shot, try to cut across, and then you have the combination of Jeremy Swayman having a really good series too.
Pekka Luukkonen for Game 3, or, in your opinion?
I would even go off the board. Colton Ellis, who is really good for them.
Yes.
And they carried 3 goalies, and he practiced. He was on the ice for morning skate, which was new. Like I believe he's coming off an injury. So I do believe that he could possibly be an option. They may want to go Lion and give him a shot like he's shown in the past when he was with the Panthers and he was put in a backup situation, that he could be really good. I also don't think they would necessarily change UPL there. I don't think you want to kind of mess with the confidence of the goaltending. I think what you saw more than anything else outside of the first goal and that second goal, that was the weird bounce, I think Lindy Ruff was kind of okay with his goaltending and didn't really blame that. And I don't think you want to kind of get into the goaltender's confidence too early. That I wouldn't be surprised if you see UPL get in there for Game 3.
There was a clip that actually I didn't see till this morning, and I didn't even notice it during the game. I don't even know if you saw this clip. It's about Jordan Greenway. And during, I believe, one of the third period scuffles, if we can roll this, please. Obviously, you can see what's going on the ice. And then, to my shock and dismay, Jordan Greenway is not with his teammates. And I know hockey is a sport where, hey, we saw with the Maple Leafs and Austin Matthews. What is he doing? That's a bad look, isn't it?
Yeah, that is interesting. I didn't notice that in the moment, but there was a lot of chaos in that moment. There was one time, maybe it might have happened just before it, and this is the beauty of actually going to games, because you're not necessarily looking at what the camera's showing you, and that's the beauty of social media, is that people record stuff from different angles. But I do remember seeing one referee just not breaking up a fight that was clearly over, and they're on the ground, and he's just standing there watching. And I'm like, what's going on? Meanwhile, like, a linesman is shoving 2 Sabres into the box. And they're yelling. They're like, why aren't you guys doing anything about what's going on over there? So I don't know. Now, the only other thing, I think, I can't tell if, I guess Greenway's on the ice, so technically he was on the ice for that. I'm not sure if he stepped on later, because I don't know if Greenway would typically be a line mate of Tage Thompson's. So there might have been the whole, he's there at the bench still technically and doesn't want to take a 10-gamer. I have to see. I have to look to kind of get the real context of there. But if he was in the lineup and he was involved in the other brawls there, then yeah, I'm not sure what's going on, but there was a lot of weird stuff in that moment, like those 2 examples that I mentioned to you, where it was just bizarre, where in that third period it looked like the officials were losing control of the situation and had their priorities like focused in a really different direction. It was really weird.
Well, I know that you've done radio on the Fan 590 for many, many years prior, and I think you can probably assimilate what's going on WGR 55 right now.
Oh, yeah.
With a lot of their fan base right now. Jordan Greenway, the spotlight's on you, my man. It's an interesting situation. Hey, let's run through obviously, I don't know how much you are a part of this, Canada must win, bring back the Stanley Cup club, but there are 3 teams that from this country that are in the Cup, and maybe just a little bit on each of the series, and we'll start off with Montreal and Tampa, now tied 1-1, Tampa winning in overtime, but Montreal seeming to show lots of resistance in this series.
Yeah, so just to answer your question, I don't necessarily buy into the whole Canada narrative. I get it, and I grew up a Leaf fan, but then when I started covering the team in 2011, you divorce yourself of all that, right? So there's none of that in me now, to keep objectivity and impartiality. But I do root for the stories. Montreal's a great story. They kind of remind me of the 2017-18 Toronto Maple Leafs, where all their young talent is starting to come together and the expectations are a lot higher than their playoff appearance the year before that. And you're seeing the Nick Suzuki's come alive, the Juraj Slafkovsky now with the hat trick in game 1 and living up to the billing of what a first overall pick is kind of supposed to be. There's some really great stories in there. Tampa is just a benchmark of how to play playoff hockey, along with Florida. Florida not in the playoffs this year, but Tampa certainly was kind of humbled by what Florida did to them last year. So you look at that, and I like the differences there. Montreal's got some of the vets, the Gallagher wasn't in there, but there's talk that maybe he gets into game 3 as a response. You've got the Josh Andersons who are not afraid to mix it up. There was the whole Hagel, I think it was Hagel Slafkovsky was the fight.
Yes.
Yeah, where Hagel did the go to sleep thing, and I think that's why you're going to see maybe those kind of adjustments to kind of get a little bit more paced from the Habs in game 3 in response to that, because that's not going to sit well. So that's been a fun series to watch. It's just been, at the same time I've been at these Sabres games or close to it, that it's been hard to kind of keep a pure focal point on. Carolina, Ottawa, that's 2 teams where the style of play is identical, although Carolina seems to be better at it. Like Carolina plays that shot generation, possess the puck a lot, and their criticism over the years about why they haven't been able to get over the hump is goaltending. And Linus Ullmark has been incredible for the Senators in this series.
Yes.
And Frederik Andersen, who I have a soft spot for when he was with Toronto early on, he's been good, but there's been okay moments. And Freddie's kind of had the criticism of how he performs in the playoffs when it comes to not the numbers, but the types of goals that he lets in. And he kind of had one of those. But credit to him and the Hurricanes. They're up 2-0. They're living up to where they have to be. I actually picked them to win the East in my predictions.
Ooh.
Just because I do think that they're due for the style of play. I like the Nick Ehlers ad. The goaltending might be a question mark, but I think Frederik Andersen is due to really kind of shut the naysayers out, because everything else about the Hurricanes you have to like. So there is that element. And then the other one is Edmonton and Anaheim. That's an interesting one, because I just, how did we get to Connor Ingram being the Edmonton Oilers starting goaltender?
I don't know.
And that's no disrespect to him, but they move the Oilers move on from Stuart Skinner, and they had to, right? So they make that trade for Tristan Jarry, and Jarry is, he's had the injury issues and he hasn't performed really well. That you really have to start questioning, is it something in Detroit's defense at this point? Although Stuart Skinner is struggling in Pittsburgh now, and Pittsburgh's playing like we expected they would play before the season started. And that's the nicest way I can actually talk about Pittsburgh's game, because I flipped and I watched some of those games, Pittsburgh, and I saw Pittsburgh have a power play, and then it would be Philly having a 2-on-none the other way. I'm like, what is going on here? And Erik Karlsson was usually on the wrong side of all that. That I start to wonder what's happening with him. So, yeah, there's a lot of weird ones, and Porter Martone just looks like a beast there. Credit to, I have a friend who covers the team in Philly, and we have this media pool where we draft, and she drafted Porter Martone, and she's looking like a genius right now, because I could not believe like the type of playoffs he's having. But yeah, Edmonton, that's a weird one. If they lose out in this series, you know, they've got Connor McDavid to worry about because he only committed to 2 years, because I think he's of the mind where he kind of wants to see where the window is for Edmonton to compete, and the goaltending continues to be a question there.
I asked you this question. I've been debating whether I ask you this question or not, because I know there's really no right answer, or there's multiple questions to the question. I know I asked you this because I know that your attendance has been probably in the, close to 100% range for the team that you brought up. That was the team of your youth, the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
Can I just be as general as this? What happened? What happened this year? What happened?
There's a lot that happened. A lot of bizarre things that happened, but a large bet that losing the skilled player that they lost, that they'd be able to make up for it in other roles without having to do a massive reshuffling of the team. And for one reason or another, it didn't work. Like, I think if you looked on paper what the Leafs acquired from what they lost, I think a lot of people would have felt that, you would take Dakota Joshua, you would take Nick Waugh. Look what Nick Waugh did last night with Colorado. You would take a lot of these guys in the playoffs, no question about it, for what they want to play. But the question that I always had was, they still have to get there. And my bold prediction for that year was the Leafs are either going to go on a deep run and finally do something meaningful, or they're going to miss out completely. I had a lot of people furrowing their brow at me when I put that suggestion in there. I didn't expect it to go as south as it did. I thought maybe it would come down to the last few days of the season. But there were just a lot of bizarre things. Joseph Woll took that leave, and then they put a lot of stress on Anthony Stolarz, and Anthony Stolarz called out the team just a few games into the season for the way they were playing in front of him, which was a big gamble to do. Yeah. And, I think he kind of admitted early on that along with the extension and along with the workload that he had been asked to do, that he might have not let it get to his head, but kind of didn't handle it the way he wanted to. And so after the injury where he kind of disappeared for a couple months, he was able to take a mental reset and recalibrate just kind of the attitude and all those things that happened. But when you don't have the goaltending that you had the year before, and the defense slipped, and it was mostly the same except for Chris Tanev and the injuries. Like, I think he only played 13 games. I can't remember how few it was. But you miss him, and you miss a lot of that identity from the goaltending and the shots and the shot suppression, that it all came undone really quickly. And so it's a death by 1,000 cuts, and a lot of crazy things that happened to the Maple Leafs season. William Nylander giving the middle finger was not a great look.
No.
There was just a lot of bizarre things that happened that made you start questioning the culture, the group dynamic, the management. It's why Brad Treliving and the Leafs parted ways in the fashion in which they did, why there is no head of hockey operations, and a lot of just bizarreness that has happened. And so it just compounded. They couldn't get over one thing. And, they talk about adversity and getting over it, and they just never could and didn't. And now they find themselves in a situation where, if they would have had one less point in the standing, they'd be guaranteed to keep their first round pick. But now they only have a 42% chance of retaining it in the draft lottery on May 5th. So that's going to be a very, very tense day as well, just to kind of see how that all plays out. But that's my long answer to your question of what happened.
I don't want to go too crazy with this Leaf stuff because there's so many layers still to go on in the future. But I do have to ask you this because I'm pretty sure you were in the room, and it's been a topic of conversation that I've had on multiple podcasts, and I'm so interested in your opinion in this. What was the mood like, or when it was all over? What were your thoughts about the Keith Pelly press conference?
Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention was the whole no one sticking up for Austin Matthews in that moment. That was the other weird part.
Yes, for sure.
But the big flashpoint too, and his injury. But the Pelly news conference, that was interesting in itself. And Bubs, you've been around the industry for a long period of time as well. The most bizarre thing about what took place with the Leafs when they parted ways with Brad Treliving and that Keith Pelly did that availability the next day was the Maple Leafs were in California. I was in California because I traveled to every game.
That's right.
And in any other market, when a president has to speak or the next person up on the totem pole, it's really bizarre. And I don't think this would happen in any other market where they're going to hold a news conference where the reporters who cover the team on a daily basis can't even be there for it because of the timing of when they made that decision, and that Keith didn't fly out to California to even address the team. That it was just kind of like, yeah, we're doing this. I'm going to hold a news conference in Toronto because that's where I'm at. And I get it that he doesn't want to be hands-on or whatever, but if there was a Shanahan there and that kind of move happens, when they had to get rid of or they had to move on from Mike Babcock or whatever they did, and they were on the road there too, and he traveled down to do it, where that didn't happen here. And it was so bizarre in that regard that I have a colleague, Nick Barden at the Hockey News, who covers the team as well. And so we had to send him over to that news conference, and I'm watching it on Zoom like anybody else would. Or not Zoom, sorry, YouTube live stream, whatever. There wasn't anything for that media. So I'm watching that, and there is a lot of bizarreness in what's said, but I'm also like, it's also bizarre that, the top two PR guys aren't even there for it, that it's MLSC PR, that it's just columnists and other people who don't travel with the team that are there to ask the questions, and they did a fantastic job. Don't get me wrong, it has nothing to do with that. It's just the layers of how it was handled was weird. And the messaging was weird, as you know, with all the involvement and the stuff that came out, that I don't even know how to put it into words, because if there was a hockey ops person, maybe they would deal with it. But I get it that the decision was rushed and maybe we were going to do it later. But you could fly down. You can fly down and hold a scrum with the reporters that are there and handle it. And even a news release said MLSC parts ways with Maple Leafs GM Brad Treliving. I've never seen it that way, where the corporation is first in the press release about the news. It would usually just say Maple Leafs part ways with Brad Treliving, and that's it. So it was interesting, and I don't know how to part ways with it. But then at the end of the season, talking to the players and how it was down the stretch, I think there was just a relief it was over. It was because this just kind of felt like a long time coming for a while, and it was really hard, even from a reporter standpoint, to just kind of covering it and find new angles. Thank goodness they allowed some rookies to finally play, because for a long time they weren't even getting those opportunities, and you kind of just wondered what it was all about. And then there's still questions with Craig Berube and if he's going to survive this under new management. But yeah, it was a lot of it was weird down the stretch for sure, to cover especially.
Let's put you in a better mood here. One of the things about social media, because I know the Leafs, like you said, it was clear. I have always thought about you guys that are on the beat, and I'm like, what a grind this has got to be. So let's change it up and end on this. I have noticed that I don't know if it's a poll, I don't know if it's a ranking. I'm not sure if it's a critique, but you have been, I don't know, I can say this for myself, you got to love the media meal. And you have been going out and looking at, I guess, all arenas in the National Hockey League and rating the media meal. Where did this come from? Great idea. And who's got the best food?
First off, I love that you showed the raclette cheese because that was one of my favorite things about this season. And just to tie back to what we were talking about and how difficult it was to cover the team down the stretch, that the thing I looked forward to, even though the season kind of seemed like it was inevitable for where it was, at least I had the media meals to look forward to with each stop for each game. So there was that. So the funny thing about this is I actually started doing this like 3 years ago, here and there, but I never put myself on camera and never made it like a story. I just did like a here's the media meal, like quick 15-second thing with, and you would hear my voice and that's it, right? That's all it was. But I started to notice on my TikTok, it would kind of gain traction. And I was also looking for TikTok content ideas because my brother, who's older than me, and he has kids, and some of them follow on Twitter as they're older, but most of them don't, or X or whatever. And I noticed TikTok was all the rage. And then like I looked at TikTok and I noticed that food seemed to be something that showed up in my algorithm a lot. So I decided to kind of show people the BTS of the food, and I started doing it, and it started to get like absurd. Like I see the reaction to it, that I'm like, okay, for this season, I'm actually going to put myself on camera and try to take some of my, because a lot of what I do now, you know me from the fan, right? But like I don't do a lot of broadcasts anymore. So I'm like, how can I kind of use that skill set and kind of do some sort of presentation here where you hear my voice and do all this stuff. And so that's where I started kind of doing it. And I have like a note like in my phone that I have ranked 1 through 32. And I just, each time I go visit, I kind of rank it. And Detroit's media meal by far is the best. And it's not even that teams are close, like Detroit's 1 and then so and so. LA I have 2, which is controversial, and that's a whole other story. But number 1, it's like everyone else is a distant last compared to Detroit. It is that good.
Okay.
It is best described as the best kid's birthday party when it comes to the food offerings. And you know what's great? I actually shared this with a lot of equipment managers on the road because they eat what we eat. Mm-hmm. Like they don't have their own catering for the visiting road like staff, like the equipment managers and stuff. So they eat the same stuff. And so when I show them this ranking and some people would see it, they're like, oh yeah, it's like there'd be some nuance when it comes to who's last or who's in the middle because it gets a little kind of gradient. But what I love about it is how much these teams now seem to care about it, which I love.
Nice.
Like I went to New Jersey and they used to be ranked last, and you know they reached out being like, your meal's on us tonight and we have some surprises for you. And so I'm like, okay, let's see where this goes. The Islanders really stepped it up this year. To San Jose, they renovated the room and they had like crazy drink offerings. Some places are free, some are not free, and some people seem to like the weird variants there. So I don't know. I just seem to have a lot of fun with it, and now my goal, hopefully, is to try to expand this to other sports in the spring and summer. Like I'm talking to some places right now because the hard part with media, I have the Hockey News as an affiliation for my hockey coverage, but I can't just be like, hey, here's so-and-so, here's my TikTok, can I go cover your media meal? Some places might be open to it, but a lot of traditional places may not be. So it's about forging the right partnerships to try and do with some other sports as well and seeing where this can go, because I've had a lot of places now be like, hey, let's do the meal from somewhere else. And so Awful Announcing has expressed some interest in kind of the stuff that I do there. And there's some other places, but the greatest thing was I was walking to the arena in Buffalo for game 1, and a guy stopped me being like, dude, I love your media meals. What are you doing? What are you doing here? I thought you only do Leaf stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm expanding it. Like I'm here. So I decided to do some more. And I'm like, please DM me because like that means the world to me. When you get people coming up to you, loving that kind of content, it just fuels you to want to keep investing into it. And so that's what I've loved about it.
Well, David, we love your coverage. We love that you're stepping out of your box and breaking down the meals and breaking down the games as well. Really appreciate your time here on the Sportsline Podcast. And let's see if we can get those Sabres to return to form and maybe get a big 7-gamer against the Bruins. I'm sure you'll love that.
Oh, it'll be a lot of fun. Thank you again for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Look forward to chatting with you again. Take care. Well, that's your Sportsline Podcast for the day. And if you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports. We love breaking it down. We love breaking down the media meals. That's great stuff. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline Podcast, you want to hear from you. Please hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe button. If you have something to say, hey, comment. Let's hear from you, folks. From the wonderful people that make the Sportsline Podcast possible, thank you so very much. And we'll see you real soon.